I want you to picture a scenario that I think pretty much everyone listening has been in at least once. It's it's 4:00 p.m. on a Friday. You're in a conference room.
Oh, the dreaded Friday afternoon meeting.
Right. And the project that you've been working on for, say, 3 months has just hit a massive, totally unforeseen wall.
Naturally.
Yeah. The client hates the prototype, the budget is completely gone, and the team lead is just staring blankly at the whiteboard. The energy in that room isn't just low, it's terrified. It's pure chaos.
You call that the doom spiral. It's when the collective anxiety just takes over the wheel.
Exactly. But then there is usually that one person in the room who kind of shifts in their chair.
Hmm.
And they don't look panicked. They don't look angry. They just look, focused. And they say something like, okay, yeah, this looks bad. But if we pivot to this other feature, we actually solve the problem better. And suddenly the whole air in the room changes.
The oxygen finally comes back into the room.
Right. And today, we aren't just talking about optimists or people who are generally happy. We're doing a deep dive into a very specific, incredibly high utility personality profile, the archetype known as the light bringer.
It is such a fascinating archetype to unpack because on the surface, it sounds simple, but when you get into it, it's highly complex.
And to do that, we're looking at a specific report from the Max Energy ME80 personality system. Now, for the listener who maybe hasn't caught our previous deep dives on this framework,
Oh, yeah.
Can you give us the primer? How does the ME80 system actually work?
Yeah, absolutely. So most traditional personality tests are like taking a photograph. They take a snapshot and say, you are an introvert or you are a thinker. Click, you're put in a box.
Right, the classic four-letter buckets.
Exactly. But the Max Energy ME80 system is more like, think of it like an MRI of your psychological energy flow. It doesn't just tell you what you are, it maps out how your energy moves.
So it's dynamic.
Highly dynamic. It looks at your internal wiring diagram, how you process incoming data, how you weigh risks versus emotions, and crucially, how that internal energy manifests outward into the real world.
Wiring diagram is a great way to describe it. So today, we are tracing the wires of the light bringer. In the system, they are coded as AWWU.
AWWU, correct?
And I want to start with their identity, specifically their core declaration from the report. Because, honestly, it sets a pretty high bar. The quote is, "In divergence, I light lamps, turning chaos into a hopeful forward path with optimism."
That is the core phrasing. And while it sounds a bit poetic, we really need to strip away that flowery language to see the mechanical function underneath. And the absolute key word in that entire sentence is divergence.
Divergence meaning when things are falling apart.
Exactly. When things are splitting, when opinions on the team are clashing or the strategy has completely failed and the path forward is just lost. That is the specific trigger condition for an AWWU.
So they don't just walk around lighting lamps in broad daylight.
No, they are defined in the report as proactive refocusers. They don't wait around for someone else to give them permission to fix the vibe. When the pressure is low, sure, they're perfectly pleasant. But when chaos hits, that's when their system activates. They immediately step up to find the exit route.
They're the, in case of emergency, break glass.
Yeah, they really are. And that leads us right into their control mechanism, which is how they view the world on a macro level. The ME80 report defines their philosophy as optimistically integrating.
Okay, I want to pause on optimistically integrating. Because I feel like optimism in the business world gets a really bad rap lately. It can easily sound like toxic positivity.
Yeah.
Just ignoring the giant fire in the corner of the room.
That is such a crucial distinction to make. The light bringer is not blind. They absolutely see the fire, but their brain is hardwired to immediately scan past the flames to find the extinguisher and the exit door.
So it's not denial.
Not at all. Integrating means they take the bad news, the failed budget, the angry client, and they integrate those brutal facts into a brand new plan.
So a pessimist looks at the whiteboard and stops at, "The budget is cut. We're dead." But the light bringer says, "The budget is cut, so we move to plan B and drop the expensive feature."
Precisely. Their entire global strategy is about finding exit routes that allow reality to keep moving. In their philosophy, as long as we are moving, we are alive. Stagnation is the ultimate enemy.
Okay, let's pop the hood on this. I want to see the engine room. In the ME80 system, this is called the energy matrix, right?
Yeah.
And it's made up of 4 layers. Let's walk the listener through these because this is where we really see how the sausage is made.
Yes, the matrix is where it gets incredibly detailed. It's built on IQ, EQ, and manifestation. Let's start with layer 1, the IP. That stands for inner value layer.
This is the core drive, right?
Exactly, it's the spark plug. And for the Lightbringer, their IP is defined as direction sense initiates.
Direction sense. So not safety sense or people sense first.
Right. Before they feel fear and before they even feel empathy for the people around them, their gut instinct is purely vector-based. Where are we going? Imagine waking up pitch black in a dark forest. Some personality types might instantly freeze to ensure safety. Some might call out to find connection. The Lightbringer just looks up to find the North Star. That directionality is their primary value driver.
Okay, so the engine is started. We know we want to go north. Then we hit layer 2, which is the IQ layer, or emotional activation. What's happening here?
Now, this is where it gets a bit paradoxical. You would think a highly optimistic person would have very low risk perception. But for the Lightbringer, layer 2 is actually defined as risk and consequence judgment.
Wait, really? So they are driven to move forward constantly, but their logic brain is immediately looking for potholes.
Yes. It's a built-in tension system, and it's brilliant. The direction sense says go, and the risk judgment immediately says watch out for that cliff. It acts as a set of brakes or steering corrections.
So that keeps them grounded.
Exactly. It ensures that their hope isn't delusional. It adds necessary pragmatism to their vision. They aren't telling the team everything will be fine by magic. They are saying everything will be fine because I have calculated a safe path through this minefield.
That makes a lot of sense. Which brings us to layer 3, the EQ, or the decision calculation layer.
Right. This is emotional perception and resonance. Think of this as their active sensor array. While their brain is figuring out the path and double-checking the risks, this EQ layer is constantly pinging the people around them. How is the team feeling? Is everyone on board? Is the client still scared?
So they aren't just charging up the hill completely alone. They're constantly checking their 6 to see if anyone is actually following them.
Correct. When you look at those first 3 layers, it's a beautifully balanced matrix. Drive, logic, empathy. But, and this is a big but, here's where we have to talk about layer 4, the manifestation layer.
This is the how.
Yes, this is what all that internal energy looks like when it finally hits the real world.
And looking at the source material, this is where I actually got a bit confused, because we call them light bringers, which makes it sound like they are projecting light outward, like a lighthouse beaming across the water. But the report explicitly says their energy operates inward.
This is probably the most fascinating and honestly the most misunderstood part of this personality profile. The specific actions listed for their manifestation are carrying, absorbing, and integrating.
Carrying and absorbing. That sounds incredibly heavy.
It is so heavy. Think about the physics of it. To be the absolute calmest person in a chaotic room, to be the one who can genuinely offer hope when everyone else is in a panic spiral, what do you actually have to do? You have to intake all of that negative chaos first.
Oh, wow. You're a filter.
You are a human metabolic processor. You absorb the confusion, the panic, and the divergence of the entire team. You process it internally inside your own nervous system, and then what you output is clean, clear direction. But the mechanism itself is entirely inward. They are taking the weight off others so the team can feel light enough to move.
That completely flips how I view this type. It's not just mindless cheerleading. It's deep emotional labor. They're actively metabolizing the stress of the group.
Which is why understanding that inward energy is so critical. If you just look at the surface, you see a confident person pointing the way. If you look at the matrix, you see someone quietly carrying everyone's baggage so they can walk freely.
That leads perfectly into their deep analysis and inner traits. Because the core trait listed here is illuminating possibility.
Yes, and the essence of that trait is summarized by a great rule. Give exits first, discuss solutions after.
I love that prioritization. Do not debate the root cause of the electrical fire while the building is actively burning down. Just find the exit door first.
Exactly. It creates a very specific mental framework that the report calls the still how mindset. And this is an amazing tool for our listeners to try out in their own lives.
How does it work?
Well, no matter what objection you throw at a Lightbringer, say you tell them, we have zero budget left, or the core technology just failed. Their brain naturally pivots to, okay, I hear you. Still, how can we go forward? What is the version of this reality where we still win?
It's relentless forward motion. And the report also mentions that they use positive narrative as a primary tool.
This is their absolute superpower for reducing psychological resistance in a group.
Give me an example of that.
Okay, say a project fails. If you tell a team, we screwed up, the prototype is garbage, we have to start over, everyone groans. Morale tanks. But if a light bringer translates that exact same event, they will say something like, look, we just learned exactly what the market doesn't want. So now we have a completely clear shot at building the version that actually dominates.
It's the exact same set of facts, but wrapped in a completely different emotional package.
Exactly. They excel at translation. They take complex, scary, divergent situations and translate them into universally understandable, safe language. They help people feel psychologically safe enough to take just one more step.
However, and there's always a however on this show, no personality profile is perfect. So let's talk about the shadow blind spots. What happens when the light bringer goes too far?
The shadow trait for the AWWU is called overlightness.
Overlightness. It sounds almost like overexposure in photography.
Yeah.
Just too bright, everything gets washed out, and you lose the details.
That's a fantastic analogy. The core risk identified in the report is this. If hope arrives too fast, risks get skipped. Because they are so hyper-focused on maintaining that sense of forward momentum, they can sometimes severely underestimate the actual physical or financial costs of a decision.
So they might confidently say, it'll be fine, we'll figure it out on the road, when actually, no, we really need to stop and fix the transmission right now, or the car will explode.
Precisely. They handle painful points way too lightly.
Right.
Because they don't want to bring the energy of the room down. They might gloss over a serious personnel issue or a glaring financial red flag just to keep the optimistic vibe intact. They end up prioritizing the feeling of progress over the hard reality of the obstacle.
And how do they react to extreme pressure? Like, if things really do start crashing down and that overlightness strategy completely fails.
This links directly back to that inward manifestation we discussed. When they are under extreme sustained pressure, they don't usually explode outwards with rage. Instead, they lean toward what the report calls hardening.
Hardening. That sounds pretty intense. What does that look like?
They shut down emotionally, they stop asking for input or help, they try to absorb way too much chaos all at once, and as a result, their output of direction becomes very rapid fire and rigid. They stop explaining the vision and just start barking orders. Do this, now do that, move there.
So the patient, optimistic guide suddenly becomes this frantic traffic cop.
Yes. Internally, they are desperately trying to clear the chaos by outputting directions as fast as humanly possible. But to the team, it just feels like whiplash. People struggle to digest the information because it's coming too fast, and the Lightbringer's patience for execution details just completely slides.
That is a critical watch-out. If you are a Lightbringer or you manage someone with this AWWU profile, you have to watch for that hardening behavior. It's the engine warning light.
Exactly. It means their internal filter is completely clogged.
Let's look at how this plays out in relationships, the social dynamics. We've mapped out the internal wiring, but what is it actually like to be friends with or partner with a Lightbringer?
Their primary interaction style is defined as consensus building. The literal effect they have on people is summarized as, after talking with you, everyone wants to take a step.
That's the friend you call when you're completely stuck in a rut in your career or your life.
Yes, they are universally perceived as open and directionally strong. In a social group, if two people are having a bitter argument, the Lightbringer is almost always the one pulling opposing sides back to the discussion table. They are the glue finding the common ground.
But is there a downside to that? I'm thinking about that inward absorption again.
Oh, definitely. There is a massive expectation mismatch that happens. Because they are so good at bringing hope, people naturally flock to them. The report notes that others begin to expect them to provide what it calls substantial emotion receiving.
Meaning people just dump all their personal problems on them.
Constantly. People treat them as a dumping ground for their own anxiety. And because the Lightbringer naturally says, give it to me, I'll help you carry it, they do it willingly. But if they don't have incredibly strict boundaries, they burn out fast. They end up carrying the heavy emotional baggage of 20 different people.
And nobody thinks to ask, hey, who is carrying the Lightbringer's baggage?
Exactly. It can be quite an isolating, lonely position if they don't have their own support system.
Let's pivot to the professional world. Let's talk about business value. If I'm a hiring manager, or I'm trying to figure out where my EWWU energy fits in a corporate structure, where does the Lightbringer really shine?
The report highlights 4 specific business superpowers. First and foremost is change and transformation communication.
Which tracks with their ability to spin a positive narrative.
Absolutely. Because they can explain the new way without terrifying the staff. If a company is going through a massive merger, a pivot, or even a round of layoffs, you want an AWWU at the front of the town hall meeting. They naturally bridge the gap between what was and what will be.
Okay, what's the second superpower?
Cross-department collaboration. Because they are inherently integrators, they naturally break down organizational silos. They don't look at a conflict and see marketing versus sales. They just see the path forward. They are natural corporate diplomats.
That makes total sense. And the third?
Morale rebuilding. If a team has just suffered a huge defeat, a lost pitch, a failed product launch, the Lightbringer steps in to provide the vision narrative to get everyone back on the horse.
And the fourth one? This one caught my eye because it seemed very specific.
Yes, projects needing activation before optimization.
Explain that phrase. Activation before optimization.
Think about how many corporate projects completely stall out because the team is trying to make everything perfect before they even launch. They are arguing about button colors before they've even written the core code. The Lightbringer is the ultimate antidote to analysis paralysis. They don't care about perfect, they just get the car moving.
Right, the whole done is better than perfect mantra.
Or in their case, moving is better than perfect. You can steer a moving vehicle. You cannot steer a parked one. They are the ones who just reach over and turn the key.
So taking all of those superpowers into account, change communication, cross-department integration, morale rebuilding, and rapid activation, what are the recommended career fields for someone with this profile? Where do they naturally slot in?
Based on that matrix, they thrive in roles where chaos is a given. Things like agile project management, where the whole job is keeping the team moving through sprints. Crisis PR or turnaround consulting are also perfect fits. You bring them into a failing company, and they immediately stabilize the panic and chart the exit route.
Or a startup founder.
Oh, absolutely. The early days of a startup are pure divergence. You need someone who naturally metabolizes that uncertainty into forward momentum.
So let's bring this all home. We have this fascinating archetype, the AWWU Lightbringer. They are inwardly absorbing the stress of the room to outwardly project clear, optimistic direction. They are optimistically integrating guides. If you are listening to this right now and you realize, wow, that is me, or that is exactly what my co-founder does, what is the ultimate takeaway here?
I think the best way to summarize it is to look at the golden sentence, the closing thought of the report itself. It states, when lamplighting is taken over and hope is received as action, Lightbringers become the key power for real change startup.
Hope received as action. I really like that framing. It's not just about making people feel better. It's about making them move better.
Exactly. Hope is only a viable strategy if it actually leads to movement. The Lightbringer takes the chaotic, terrified energy of a group and refines it into a laser beam of direction. But the biggest lesson for them is to remember to manage their own inward tank. They have to empty their own emotional filter occasionally, or they will harden and break.
That is fantastic advice. Manage your output by aggressively protecting your input. You know, this whole deep dive really leaves me with a provocative thought to chew on.
What's that?
It makes me wonder, can a Lightbringer actually teach someone else how to light lamps? Or is this purely an innate metabolic process? Like, can a team eventually learn to become its own Lightbringer? Or are we always going to be reliant on that one person in the room to absorb the panic for us?
That is a phenomenal question, and it really speaks to how much we rely on these individuals without even realizing it.
Something for all of us to mull over on our next Friday afternoon crisis meeting. A huge thank you to the Max Energy team for providing the source material for this insight. Just a reminder to the listener, this deep dive is based entirely on the Max Energy ME80 Personality Assessment Report. And if you want to dig deeper into your own energy matrix, to find out if you are an AWWU Lightbringer or maybe one of the other profiles, you can visit their official website at www.maxenergylife.com. Or if you want to join the community discussions on social media, you can search on Facebook. You can look up the Chinese name, which is Max Energy Shantuwu, or you can search for Metanergy. Know you. There is a whole community out there mapping out these wiring diagrams.
It is always incredibly revealing to see what's running under the hood.
Absolutely. So, to everyone listening, until next time, keep the lights on, check your exits, and we'll see you on the next deep dive.
Take care, everyone.